Death experience. Let's hear about it.
Okay, it was 1994.
Ethan Morris was a man of logic, a tech executive who lived by schedules and certainty, until the day he died for 20 minutes. What began as a routine outpatient procedure spiraled into a medical disaster, launching him out of his body and into a realm no science could explain. He watched his own surgery from above, crossed into a world of unimaginable peace, and returned forever changed. This is the testimony of what he saw, and why he was sent back. Hold on a minute, if you have not subscribed to our channel, do well to subscribe, like, comment and share videos of this channel, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell.
My name is Ethan Morris. I'm 45 years old, and I live in Boulder, Colorado. I've worked as a project manager in a growing tech company for over a decade. On paper, my life looked successful. I had a good job, a nice house, and a family. Most people who knew me would probably say I had everything going for me. But deep down, I always felt like something was missing. My days were packed. I spent long hours in meetings, juggling deadlines, coordinating teams, and making sure our products shipped on time. It was constant. Even when I wasn't at work, I was still thinking about work, checking emails, solving problems, preparing for the next big thing. My phone was always in my hand, even during dinner. I told myself I was doing all this for my family, but the truth is, I was hardly present for them. My wife, Claire, is one of the most patient people I know. She held everything together, raising our 2 kids, taking care of the house, doing all the things I told myself I'd help with once things slowed down. But they never did. I kept promising I'd be more involved, but work always came first. Somewhere along the way, I stopped noticing how far I'd drifted from her and the kids. I grew up going to church, but over the years, that part of me faded away. I started questioning a lot of things: God, purpose, the point of life. I became skeptical. I believed in working hard, making money, and staying sharp. That was my focus. Faith, to me, felt like a distant idea for people who needed something to hold on to. I didn't think I needed it. I thought I had everything under control. But I was restless. No matter how many hours I worked or goals I reached, there was a nagging feeling in the back of my mind that I couldn't shake. I would lie awake at night wondering why I still felt so empty. I brushed it off, told myself I was just tired, that things would feel better after the next promotion or after the next project launched. But that moment never came. Looking back, I see now how tightly I was gripping a life that was running on autopilot. I didn't see how disconnected I had become, not just from my family, but from myself. I was moving so fast, I never stopped to ask what really mattered. All of that changed one afternoon. I wasn't expecting it. I didn't see it coming. But in the middle of my busy, structured life, something happened that forced me to stop completely. In a matter of minutes, everything I believed about life, death, and what comes after was turned upside down. And that's where this story really begins. It was a Saturday afternoon in early spring, one of those rare weekends where I actually had no meetings, no deadlines, no work calls. Claire had urged me to take a break and get outside. "Go ride," she said. "Clear your head." I used to mountain bike all the time before the job took over my life, and I thought maybe she was right. So I dusted off my gear, loaded the bike into the back of the car, and drove up to one of the trails outside Boulder. The sun was out, the air was crisp, and the mountains stretched out around me. For the first time in months, I felt a little free. I pedaled hard, pushing myself up the hills, breathing in deep, cold gulps of air. The trail twisted through pines and over rocks. My mind, usually full of noise, started to quiet down. About 40 minutes in, I reached a narrow section of trail that curved around a steep drop. I'd done this route before, but something felt off. The path was looser than I remembered, soft dirt over jagged rock. My front wheel slipped. I tried to correct it, but it was too late. The bike jerked sideways, and I flew forward over the handlebars. Time slowed. I remember the sound of my helmet cracking against the ground, the thud of my body hitting rock, the sharp pain that shot through my chest. For a few seconds, I couldn't breathe. I tried to move, but my limbs feel heavy, like they weren't part of me anymore. My vision blurred. I could taste blood in my mouth. There was ringing in my ears, and the sky above spun in slow circles. I lay there, half conscious, feeling pain pulse through my ribs and back. I could barely lift my head. The trees above me swayed gently in the wind, completely unaware of the fact that something had gone horribly wrong. My breathing turned shallow. A tight, squeezing pressure built in my chest, and everything in me said something was seriously wrong. Not just bruises or scrapes, something deeper. Something is failing. I reached for my phone, but my fingers didn't respond. A coldness crept into my arms, then my legs. My heart pounded, then skipped, then fluttered in a way that made no sense. My body felt like it was shutting down. My vision narrowed, darkened at the edges. I knew I was slipping. I felt it. I was alone on a mountainside, and my body was giving out. Then, just like that, everything went black. The next thing I remember wasn't waking up in a hospital bed. It was a blur of voices, lights, and movement. I was in and out, fading between pain and silence. I later learned that a hiker found me unconscious and called for help. An emergency crew had airlifted me off the trail and rushed me to Boulder Community Hospital. When I finally came to for a few brief moments, I was being wheeled down a hallway, ceiling tiles flying past above me. There were voices, urgent but calm, and I could feel the pressure of hands on my chest, the sting of something sharp going into my arm. I slipped back out before I could ask any questions. Darkness again. Behind the scenes, a team had been assembled quickly. I had several broken ribs, a collapsed lung, and internal bleeding. There was swelling in my brain. The doctor in charge was Dr. Keller, a well-respected trauma surgeon known for staying cool under pressure. Alongside him was Lena, a nurse still in her first year on the job. This was her first emergency surgery. The plan was to stabilize my breathing and stop the bleeding. Time was tight. Every second mattered. They prepared me for surgery immediately. According to Claire, who had been called and rushed to the hospital in a panic, the doctors said the outcome was uncertain. "We'll do everything we can," they told her. In the operating room, the team moved fast. They applied a tourniquet to help manage the blood flow from an artery that had been damaged in the crash. That's when the mistake happened. Lena, nervous and unsure, adjusted the valves wrong. Instead of managing the pressure, she opened one valve but forgot to close the other. The pressure spiked, sending a surge through my system. Suddenly, my heart stopped. The monitor was flatlined. Just like that, I was gone. The room froze for a split second before bursting into action. Lena stepped back in horror, whispering, "I think I killed him!" Dr. Keller shouted for the crash cart. They started CPR, injected medication, and tried everything to bring me back. I was clinically dead for 20 full minutes. They kept working, refusing to give up. One nurse later told Claire, "It was like there was a war going on in his body. He didn't want to come back." But during those 20 minutes, something else was happening, something no machine in that room could measure. The first thing I became aware of wasn't pain or sound, it was weightlessness. Total, quiet weightlessness. There was no body, no strain, no fear. Just calm. I opened my eyes, or at least it felt like I did, and found myself hovering above a bright, sterile room. Everything was cast in a strange, soft glow. I looked down and realized I was watching a team of doctors working on someone laid out on a table. Tubes, wires, frantic movement. Then, slowly, it hit me. The person they were trying to save was me. I wasn't afraid. That surprised me. There was no panic or confusion, just a quiet kind of awe. The air felt thick but not heavy, like being submerged in warm water, but without resistance. Colors looked brighter, crisper. The blues of the surgical gowns, the whites of the overhead lights, they all had an intensity I'd never noticed before. Everything felt sharper, more alive, even though I was watching it from somewhere far beyond what I'd ever known. I saw Dr. Keller standing over my body, his brow furrowed, hands steady. He was focused, methodical, not giving in to panic. He kept calling out instructions, demanding the right tools, shifting positions to get better access. I could hear everything, but not through my ears. It was like sound moved directly into my mind, smooth and effortless. Then I noticed her, Lena, the nurse. She had stepped back against the wall, her eyes wide with fear. I could hear her whisper, "I think I killed him." Her hands were trembling. She didn't move, frozen by the moment, horrified by her mistake. No one else seemed to hear her. But I did. I wanted to reach out to her, to tell her it wasn't her fault. But I had no arms, no voice. I only had presence. I was aware of myself, and yet, I wasn't flesh anymore. It was like I was thinking and feeling, floating in a space where time didn't seem to exist. And I wasn't alone. There was someone beside me. Not a person exactly, more like a presence. A figure of light, calm and steady. I couldn't see my face, but I knew I wasn't afraid. It felt familiar, like I'd known this presence forever. We didn't speak, but I understood it. Everything was communicated through a kind of quiet knowing. We simply observed together. We watched the team trying everything: paddles, medications, compressions. I watched my chest rise and fall under the pressure of CPR, the flash of the defibrillator paddles, the desperate push to keep me from slipping away. But I wasn't panicking. I wasn't even curious in the normal way. I just watched. Present, but separate. The strange thing was how peaceful I felt. I knew I had died. I understood it. But there was no dread, no sorrow. There was only calm. I looked down at the operating table, at the person I had been, and didn't feel regret. I felt love. Love for Claire. For my kids. For the life I had rushed through without ever really appreciating. Everything slowed. The buzzing around my body, the shouted instructions, the beeping of machines, they all seemed to fade into a kind of distant hum. I turned slightly, as if the light beside me had moved, inviting me to follow. And I did. In the blink of an eye, everything changed. One moment I was floating above the operating room, and the next, I was somewhere else entirely. There was no movement, no travel, no sense of passing through anything. I was just there. I stood in the middle of a field that stretched farther than I could see. The sky above me glowed with a light that wasn't like the sun, but it lit everything perfectly. There were no shadows, just a warm brightness that felt alive. The air was still, not hot or cold, just perfectly comfortable, like it had been designed specifically for me. To my left were trees unlike any I'd ever seen. Their trunks were tall and smooth, almost silver in color, and their leaves shimmered like they were catching light from some unseen source. They stood in quiet rows, dignified and peaceful, not swaying or rustling, just being. It felt like they had been there forever. Farther ahead, there were flowers and colors I didn't know existed. They reached up to my waist and moved slightly as if breathing. Deep blues, rich purples, golden reds, each petal looked like it had been painted with care. The grass under my feet was soft, springy, almost glowing with green. I walked forward, and it didn't feel like walking. My feet touched the ground, but I felt no weight. There was no effort. No pain. I was calm. I wasn't thinking about the hospital. I wasn't worried about what was happening to my body. I wasn't even wondering what this place was. It felt natural to be there. Familiar even. Like I had always known it existed. The companion that had floated beside me in the hospital had followed me here. I could feel the presence just off to my side as I moved, silent and reassuring. But slowly, that presence began to fade. Not all at once, and not in fear or sadness. It was more like they had done what they came to do. They were never really separate from me, they had just helped me get here. I stood there, surrounded by beauty I couldn't describe if I tried, and felt a sense of peace so deep it was almost overwhelming. There was no time, no pressure, no list of things I had to do. I didn't feel lost. I didn't feel confused. I just was. And it was perfect. It started without warning. I wasn't asked if I was ready. There was no screen, no voice saying, "Let's look back." It simply began. Suddenly, I was reliving my entire life, but not like a movie. It was sharper, more real than that. Every memory had weight. Every moment was full. I could feel everything I had ever made someone feel. Every word, every look, every decision. I didn't just remember it, I became it again. I saw myself as a baby, being held in my mother's arms, feeling her heartbeat close to mine. I could smell her skin, and hear her voice humming gently. Then I was a toddler, laughing uncontrollably while my dad spun me around the living room. The joy wasn't just mine. I felt his joy too, that deep love only a parent knows. It was pure and simple. Then came school years. I felt moments I'd forgotten, when I made fun of a quiet kid in third grade to look cool. I didn't just remember his reaction. I felt his embarrassment, his sadness. I saw how my careless joke left a mark I never knew existed. I moved quickly through time, but nothing felt rushed. I saw teenage years, the first time I kissed someone, the first time I lied to someone I loved. I felt the pride of winning, the shame of cheating, the confusion of not knowing who I was. I saw moments I hadn't thought about in years, some that made me smile deeply, and some that made my stomach twist. I saw the moment I proposed to my wife, Sarah, how her eyes lit up. I felt the warmth of her hand in mine, the steady love she gave so easily. But I also saw the times I ignored her, talked over her, brushed off her worries because I had a deadline or was too tired from work. I watched myself holding our daughter for the first time, and I wept again, just like I had in the hospital room that day. But I also saw the times I missed her school plays, the times I came home grumpy and barely spoke to her because I was thinking about a work problem. There was no one judging me. No booming voice telling me what I did wrong. Just me, watching, feeling, remembering. It was quiet. Honest. Deep. And it was clear that the only one I had to answer to was myself. I began to notice patterns. How often I put work above people. How often I chose being right over being kind. How many small moments I rushed through without seeing the people right in front of me. I saw that my life wasn't full of huge, awful mistakes, but thousands of small ones that added up. Missed chances to love better. Missed chances to listen more. But it wasn't all heavy. I felt moments of goodness too. I saw the time I stopped on a highway to help a stranger change a tire. I remembered comforting a friend at their mother's funeral. I remembered staying up all night with my sick child, singing to her softly until she fell asleep. Those moments mattered. Even the little ones mattered. The review didn't end with a sense of punishment. It ended with a kind of invitation. A question that wasn't spoken out loud but filled my mind clearly. Now that you've seen who you've been, who do you want to become? And I knew. I wanted to be better. Not perfect, just better. Kinder. More present. Less concerned about titles, deadlines, or proving anything. I saw so clearly that love is the only thing that lasts. Everything else fades. The moment the review ended, I stood quietly in that glowing field. I felt both cracked open and held together. And for the first time in years, maybe ever, I felt like I understood what my life was truly meant to be about. I stood still in that field, everything quiet around me. The colors of the wildflowers, the tall grass, the sky. They seemed to glow softly, like the whole place was breathing with light. I couldn't see the companion anymore. I was alone now, but I wasn't afraid. Ahead of me, a white cloud began to form. It wasn't like any cloud I'd ever seen. It didn't drift or break apart. It was solid in its presence, glowing from within. I felt drawn to it, not by force but by something gentle, like a deep knowing inside me. As I stepped closer, the air changed. It felt warmer but not hot. Peaceful, but powerful. Then, through the cloud, an arm reached out. I saw it clearly. It wasn't glowing or mystical in the way I expected. It was real, strong, weathered, solid. It looked like the arm of someone who had worked hard their whole life. A farmer's arm. It didn't sparkle or shine. It just was. And somehow, that made it even more divine. The hand opened toward me. I reached out without hesitation. As soon as I touched it, I felt something deep move through me. Not pain. Not fear. Just knowing. Then came the words, not out loud, but straight into my mind, as clear as if someone had whispered them right into my chest. It's not your time. There is still more for you to do. I didn't argue. I didn't beg to stay. I just stood there, holding that truth. It filled me completely. I knew it wasn't finished. I had to go back. There were people I hadn't loved well enough. Things I needed to say. Things I still hadn't learned. As the arm pulled back into the cloud, I heard one more instruction, again, not spoken but fully understood. Do not look back. That part stayed with me more than anything. Not because it was strict or stern, but because it was kind. It was telling me that what I'd seen was enough. That I didn't need to carry it like a weight. I needed to carry it like a lesson. Forward, not backward. And just like that, I felt myself moving, fast and silent, back toward where I had come from. I wasn't walking or flying. I was just going. The light faded. The warmth shifted. And in the distance, I began to feel my body again. The return wasn't gentle. One moment I was wrapped in peace, and the next. It was like being yanked through a tunnel of noise and pain. My body felt tight, heavy, like 1,000 pounds of pressure was slamming into me all at once. I couldn't breathe at first. My chest burned. My skin felt cold and hot at the same time, like I'd been dropped in icy water. I gasped. Loud. And then I coughed so hard it shook my whole body. There were voices shouting, the clatter of metal tools, beeping machines, footsteps moving fast. He's back! He's back! I blinked, barely able to see through the haze. Above me, lights burned white into my eyes. Shapes moved, faces blurred with panic and relief. I heard someone crying softly. It was Lena, the nurse. She stood frozen near the corner of the room, her hands shaking. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Her face was pale, and I could see the guilt written all over her. Dr. Keller leaned in close to me, sweat on his forehead, hands still stained from surgery. His eyes were wide. I'd never seen that kind of look on a person before, some mix of disbelief, fear, and something like reverence. Ethan, he said slowly, like he needed to hear it out loud. You were gone. You were flatlined for 20 minutes. He showed me the clipboard. My name, the time, the note, time of death, 3:14 p.m. I didn't say much. I couldn't. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I had no words for what I'd just been through. They wheeled me into recovery. Connie, my wife, was waiting in the hallway. She had no idea what had just happened. I could see her confusion shift into concern the moment she saw the way they were treating me, the way they hovered, checked, and rechecked everything. Like they weren't sure if I was really back. Later, Lena came in to check my vitals. She couldn't stop apologizing. I just smiled and told her it was okay. It really was. She had no idea what she'd helped me see. Dr. Keller kept checking in over the next few days. More than once a day, every day. Each time, he looked at me like I was a walking question he'd never figure out. They said my survival didn't make sense. But to me it did. Because I knew I wasn't supposed to stay there. Not yet. For the next few days, I felt a peace that I can't fully explain. It wasn't just that I had survived, it was deeper than that. It was like something inside me had shifted, settled. There was no fear, no anxiety, no rushing thoughts like I usually had. Just stillness. Like everything was finally in its right place. I remember lying in the hospital bed, watching the morning light filter through the window. Everything seemed brighter, clearer. I could hear birds outside. I noticed the way the nurse gently adjusted my blanket, the way my pump clicked softly every few minutes. These little things, which I would have ignored before, felt sacred somehow. Dr. Keller came in the day after I woke up. He stared at my chart for a long time before finally saying, Medically, this doesn't make much sense. You shouldn't be sitting up. And definitely not smiling. I didn't feel the need to explain. He wouldn't have understood even if I tried. I just said, "Thank you for trying your best." And he nodded like he didn't quite know what to make of me anymore. Claire sat by my bed that afternoon, her hand in mine. She didn't ask too many questions. She just kept looking at me like she could tell something had changed. I think she expected me to be shaken, maybe even traumatized, but I wasn't. I felt calm. More present than I'd been in years. "You're really okay?" she asked gently. "I am," I said. "Better than I've ever been." Our kids called later that evening. Hearing their voices, I felt tears come up in my eyes. Not because I was sad, because I was finally listening. Really listening. Everything that had felt urgent before. Emails, meetings, promotions, it all felt so small now. All I wanted was more time with the people I loved. And for the first time in a long while, I knew exactly what mattered. Before the accident, I would have told you I was doing just fine. I had a good job, a steady income, and a path I thought I was supposed to follow. But after what I experienced, none of that seemed to matter the same way anymore. When I got home from the hospital, I didn't rush back to work. I took time, real time, to be with my family. I spent slow mornings making pancakes with my daughter, and long walks with Claire after dinner. I actually listened when people talked. I paid attention, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Within a few months, I made some big changes. I stepped down from my position at the tech company. It wasn't easy. I had worked hard to get there. But it didn't feel right anymore. My ambition used to drive everything I did. Now, it just felt heavy. Like a weight I didn't need to carry anymore. I took a smaller role at a local nonprofit that focused on youth education. The pay wasn't the same, but the work filled me in a way my old job never had. I found myself speaking more openly about values, about life, even about what I saw during those 20 minutes. Not everyone understood, but that didn't matter. I wasn't trying to convince anyone. I was just living differently. Spiritually, something had opened in me. I wasn't skeptical anymore. I didn't need proof or arguments. I knew something waited beyond this life. And that knowing brought me peace every single day. I also stopped needing to be in control all the time. I started trusting life more. Trusting that it had its seasons, that people could change, that I could change. I forgave people more easily. I let go of grudges. I saw pain in others where I used to see frustration. The fear that once followed me everywhere, fear of failure, fear of not being enough, fear of dying, was just gone. In its place was something better, quiet purpose. I wasn't chasing anymore. I was walking. And that made all the difference. For a long time, I didn't talk about what happened to me. Not because I was ashamed or unsure, but because it felt too personal, too sacred. I only told a few close family members, and even then, I was careful with my words. There was a peace in keeping it to myself, letting the experience shape me quietly. But lately, something has shifted. I look around and see so much fear in the world. People are anxious, about disease, about war, about the future. There's this quiet panic that seems to sit beneath everything, like everyone's waiting for the next bad thing to happen. And I started thinking, maybe now is the time. Not because I think I have all the answers. I don't. But because I've seen what's on the other side. And I can tell you, without any hesitation, death is not the end. It's not something to fear. It's peaceful. It's full of light. And in that place, everything makes sense. What I experienced during those 20 minutes changed the way I see life. It reminded me that we all have a chance to reset. To reprioritize. To begin again. You don't have to die to wake up. You just have to decide to start living differently. I've kept quiet for years, but I believe someone out there needs to hear this now. Maybe someone who's lost someone recently. Or someone who's afraid of what comes next. Maybe it's you. I want you to know, you are not alone. And whatever you're facing, This life is not all there is. There's more. And it's more beautiful than we can imagine. So that's why I'm speaking now. Not to convince you, but to offer hope. To tell the truth, as I experienced it. Because if even one person finds peace from hearing this, then it was worth sharing. Looking back now, all these years later, I carry that moment with me every single day. Not as something strange or supernatural, but as something deeply personal and grounding. It gave me clarity I didn't know I needed. Peace isn't just a word anymore, it's a place I've been. A presence I've felt. It's real. Death, as I saw it, is not something to dread. It's not dark or frightening. It's gentle. It's quiet. It's full of light and love. There was no anger or punishment waiting on the other side, just understanding. Just the truth. Just peace. And life. Life is sacred. Every day we get to wake up is a gift, not a guarantee. The small things matter more than I ever knew, the laughter at the dinner table, the hug from a child, the quiet moments walking under the trees. These are the moments that hold weight when everything else falls away. If there's anything I'd want someone to take away from my story, it's this: don't wait. Don't wait until something breaks or falls apart to start living the way you're meant to. Forgive the people who hurt you. Tell the ones you love how much they matter. Let go of the stress and competition and fear. Time is short, but it's also full of opportunity, every single second. We're not here by accident. We're here to grow, to love, and to walk each other home. That's what I believe now. So wherever you are, whatever you're carrying, I hope you'll stop for a moment and remember what truly matters. Because it's not the job, or the title, or the stuff, it's the connection. It's kind. It's love. And it's never too late to start again.